Adam Silver just made the biggest international move in women's basketball history, and it's aimed straight at China. As the WNBA faces stalled negotiations, declining trust in leadership, and the looming threat of a lockout, Silver is bypassing bureaucracy and opening the league to one of the largest sports markets in the world. He's doing what current Commissioner Cathy Engelbert has failed to, tapping into global potential. With talks underway to launch WNBA games in China and Macau, Silver is accelerating a pivot that could redefine the league's relevance.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Not just in the US, but everywhere basketball matters. This isn't about hype, it's about momentum and survival. From Caitlin Clark's rising stardom to record-breaking attendance and merchandise sales, women's basketball is on the brink of something massive. Silver's intervention is timed perfectly to harness that surge and turn it into something sustainable. The international push isn't just a flashy headline. It's a calculated move to turn the WNBA into a global product. While Engelbert faces criticism and fading influence, Silver's strategic leadership could be the reset button the league desperately needs. The WNBA was on a brink. Tensions were rising. Players were frustrated. Owners were growing restless. And in the middle of it all, Commissioner Cathy Engelbert was silent. With the league facing the very real possibility of a lockout, one thing became painfully clear. Leadership was failing. That's when Adam Silver stepped in. The NBA commissioner didn't just lend a hand. He took the wheel. And once he did, it was game over for the status quo. Silver's involvement wasn't a friendly assist. It was a full-blown intervention. Negotiations that had stalled suddenly found traction. Players who felt ignored were suddenly being heard. And behind closed doors, Silver wasn't just calming nerves. He was drawing up a new blueprint for the league. While Engelbert struggled to maintain confidence among players and team owners, Silver started doing what she hadn't, talking to people. Checking in with star players like Sabrina Ionescu and Candace Parker. Engaging directly. Rebuilding trust. And while Engelbert's leadership style was defined by distance, Silver's was all about connection. That contrast didn't go unnoticed. Internally, the WNBA had been a mess. Communication breakdowns, tension between league officials and athletes, and a growing disconnect between leadership and the very people who keep the league alive. Engelbert had already lost support from key players and owners. Silver stepped in and made it obvious just how ineffective her leadership had become. But this wasn't just about preventing a disaster. Silver wasn't there to put a Band-Aid on a crisis. He came with a long-term plan. And at the center of that plan, expansion, global expansion, specifically into China and Macau. Silver saw what Engelbert didn't, or wouldn't move fast enough on. That the WNBA wasn't just sitting on a domestic product with potential. It was sitting on an international opportunity. A chance to take women's basketball to one of the biggest basketball-loving audiences in the world. China's market is massive, and the NBA has been successfully cultivating it for years. Now Silver is tapping into that same playbook for the WNBA. Official WNBA games in China and Macau aren't just about growing the brand. They're about showing the world and investors that the league is scalable, that it has international value, that it can fill arenas in Shanghai just like it can in New York. And once the WNBA becomes part of the global conversation, everything changes. Sponsorships become bigger. Broadcast deals become more lucrative. Merchandise sales expand. It's not just about growing the league's visibility, it's about growing its worth. This strategy isn't just smart, it's essential. The WNBA's growth at home has been strong, but fragile. There's been undeniable momentum, especially with breakout stars like Caitlin Clark bringing in new fans. Ratings are up. Attendance is climbing. But that doesn't make the league immune to instability. In fact, it makes smart leadership more urgent than ever. Because growth without structure, that's how things fall apart. Silver's moves aren't just about chasing headlines. They're about ensuring sustainability. He's actively working to negotiate a new collective bargaining agreement. Not because the league hit a bump, but because he understands that foundational issues have to be addressed now before that momentum turns into frustration. The WNBA doesn't just need a vision, it needs execution. And Silver's stepping in to deliver both. What's made his involvement so effective isn't just his business sense. It's his relationship management, the very thing Engelbert has been criticized for neglecting. Silver isn't trying to command a room with power. He's building relationships. Players trust him. Owners respect him. He speaks their language, clearly, directly, and consistently. That kind of communication creates loyalty. It stabilizes leadership. And it gets things done. The contrast couldn't be more obvious. While Engelbert has become known for being distant, Silver is hands-on. Where she's been passive, he's been decisive. And when the league was facing a potential shutdown, Silver didn't panic. He planned. His leadership style is a big reason the league didn't spiral. But that doesn't mean everything's back to normal. If anything, Silver's involvement has only highlighted the cracks in the WNBA's leadership structure. Because if Adam Silver, who already runs the NBA, is the one keeping the WNBA afloat, then what does that say about Engelbert's role? It says her grip on the league is slipping fast. This power shift didn't come with a press release. No one officially announced that Silver was taking over. But actions speak louder than job titles. And in every measurable way, Silver has already taken control of the league's direction. His expansion plans, his negotiation tactics, his player outreach. That's real power, and everyone sees it. And if you're Engelbert, that's a problem. Because now, the conversation isn't just about what's happening in China or how to avoid a lockout. It's about whether the WNBA needs new leadership altogether. Her perceived absence during one of the most critical moments in league history has put her future into question. Not with rumors or scandals, but with results. Silver's success is making her leadership look redundant, even unnecessary. And that's where this gets even more interesting. Because Silver's moves aren't just creating short-term fixes, they're establishing long-term control. As the league heads toward new media deals, more sponsorships, and expanded fan bases, who's going to lead it through that evolution? The person who missed the moment, or the one who seized it? Silver's involvement is also a signal to the sports world at large. Women's basketball is no longer just about domestic growth. It's part of a global strategy. And if the WNBA becomes the next big export in the sports economy, Silver will be the architect behind that rise. The NBA has already proven what global expansion can do. The WNBA is next in line, and Silver's blueprint is already in motion. The partnership with China and Macau isn't just smart. It's potentially transformative. This isn't about playing nice with international markets. It's about embedding the WNBA into them. It's about unlocking hundreds of millions of fans who've never had access to the league before. It's about building a global brand that's no longer fighting for attention, but commanding it. That's a massive shift. And let's be clear, none of this would be happening without Silver. The lockout would have crushed the momentum. The communication breakdown would have deepened. The expansion plans would have remained hypothetical. He stopped the bleeding and started a rebuild that's turning into a revolution. Silver's strategic planning isn't just securing the present, it's designing the future. The league is becoming more stable, more respected, and more profitable. And it's doing so because the person leading it, really leading it, knows how to navigate high-stakes negotiations, build long-term infrastructure, and maintain relationships that actually matter. That's not theory. That's leadership. And players are responding. The increased communication, the consistent outreach, the bigger picture thinking, it's making a difference. Athletes who once felt sidelined are now central to the conversation. Not just as players, but as partners. That cultural shift is just as important as any global expansion. Because a league's health isn't just measured in revenue. It's measured in trust. And right now, trust in Adam Silver is rising, while confidence in Kathy Engelbert continues to fade. The writing's on the wall. This isn't a temporary correction. It's a change in direction. The WNBA is being reshaped from the inside out, not through a dramatic firing or scandal, but through performance. And the message is clear. Results matter. The league doesn't have time to wait for Engelbert to catch up. Silver's already sprinting ahead. So the next time you hear about a WNBA international game in China or a new sponsorship deal with an overseas brand, know that it didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened because someone stepped in, understood the stakes, and did what needed to be done. Adam Silver didn't just save the WNBA from collapse. He positioned it for global relevance. And in the process, he might have just rewritten the future of women's basketball. If you're following this story, you know it's far from over. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Should Silver take full control of the WNBA? Is this international strategy going to pay off? Like the video, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned. Because the league is changing, and this is just the start. Adam Silver isn't just running damage control anymore. He's reshaping an entire league, brick by brick, in real time. What started as a quiet intervention to stop the WNBA from hurtling toward a lockout has now grown into a full-fledged power shift. The kind you can't walk back from. The kind that redefines who's really calling the shots. There's no memo saying Silver is in charge, but you can see it in the decisions. You can feel it in the momentum. And more than anything, you can hear it in the silence from Kathy Engelbert's side of the room. Because while Silver has been out here directly communicating with players, negotiating the next CBA, and laying the groundwork for international expansion, Engelbert has remained stuck in neutral, disconnected from players, out of step with owners, and increasingly out of the loop. Let's not pretend this kind of leadership vacuum can go unnoticed. The league was heading into one of the most important moments in its history. With the popularity of stars like Caitlin Clark exploding, the WNBA finally had mainstream attention. But instead of capitalizing on the wave, Engelbert nearly let the league crash straight into a lockout. That's not just a mistake. That's a failure of vision. So Silver stepped in, not to help, but to take over. And the way he's doing it, quiet, deliberate, and incredibly effective. First, he neutralized the immediate threat of a lockout by taking charge of negotiations. That alone kept the league from spiraling. But then he went further. He initiated conversations with players and stakeholders, not through vague statements or press releases, but real conversations. Phone calls, one-on-ones, updates. This is where Silver thrives, relationship management. The exact thing Engelbert was being criticized for, Silver turned into his primary weapon. He's not afraid to engage directly with players who have opinions. Sabrina Ionescu, Candace Parker, players with influence, he listens. He responds. He includes them. It's not performative. It's strategic, because you can't run a successful league when your stars don't feel respected. And Silver gets that. Meanwhile, Engelbert's leadership style has been the opposite. Detached, inconsistent, reactive. And that's why we're here. Watching as Adam Silver doesn't just steady the WNBA, he elevates it. Let's talk about the expansion into China and Macau. This isn't a random idea tossed out to distract from internal drama. It's part of a larger strategy. Silver sees what the WNBA could be. Not just a niche league clinging to U.S. media rights deals, but a global product with international appeal and financial legs. China is more than a market. It's a gold mine. The NBA knows this. They've been investing there for decades. And now, Silver's using that same infrastructure and fan base to introduce the WNBA to a new audience. One that already loves basketball, already consumes it at scale, and is ready to embrace women's sports on a bigger level. Official games in China and Macau aren't a PR stunt. They're a business move. One that diversifies revenue, expands exposure, and builds the kind of global presence the WNBA has never had before. And it's coming straight from Silver's playbook. He's not just bringing games overseas. He's creating long-term value. International partnerships, media rights, sponsorships, fan engagement. This is how you take a struggling league and give it real market power. The domestic market has always been tight for the WNBA. The attention is there, but the money hasn't always followed. Expansion into global markets opens new doors, and Silver is already walking through them. That move alone could define the next era of the league. But it's what it represents that really matters. Silver is thinking long-term, not about just solving problems, but about redefining the future. And he's doing it without ever stepping on a podium to take credit. That's the wildest part. Engelbert still holds the title, but the authority? That's already shifted, and everyone in the room knows it. Owners aren't waiting for her to speak. Players aren't relying on her for clarity. Sponsors and media partners? They're watching Silver, because he's the one with the plan and the track record to back it up. His involvement has stabilized what could have easily turned into a meltdown. But more importantly, it's reset expectations. Suddenly, the WNBA isn't just about survival. It's about growth. It's about global relevance. It's about catching up to where the NBA already is and where women's sports deserve to be. And that shift is cultural. When a league starts getting real investment, when the players are treated like true stakeholders, when expansion becomes the norm instead of a fantasy, that changes how fans view the product. It changes how the media covers it. It changes how athletes talk about it. It legitimizes everything. Silver understands that this isn't just about basketball. It's about perception. And if the WNBA is going to become a permanent part of the global sports conversation, it can't be treated like an afterthought. That's why he's acting now. While the interest is there, while the Caitlin Clarks of the world are lighting it up, while the moment is still hot. Because leadership isn't about reacting to pressure. It's about anticipating opportunity. And Silver is doing what Engelbert wouldn't or couldn't move. The truth is, Engelbert had her shot. The league had moments under her watch where it could have accelerated. But without communication, without innovation, without direction, everything stalled. The collective bargaining agreement situation should have never come down to a potential lockout. The expansion strategy should have started years ago. Player outreach shouldn't require an emergency intervention. But now it's all in motion because someone finally took it seriously. And while Silver is too strategic to publicly push Engelbert out, his actions are making the question inevitable. How much longer can the WNBA afford to keep her in the chair? At some point, symbolic leadership becomes a liability. The league is headed into a new era. With expansion comes pressure. With new international deals come expectations. With real investment comes accountability. You can't lead that kind of growth without credibility, and Silver's the one building it. Engelbert, meanwhile, feels like a placeholder. And placeholders don't drive transformation. They just keep the seat warm. So where does this leave the league? In transition, but a promising one. The WNBA has never had this kind of momentum and strategic backing at the same time. It's always been one or the other. Now it's both. And that creates potential for something bigger than the league has ever seen. Revenue is diversifying. Viewership is rising. Stars are emerging. And leadership, at least from Silver's end, is solidifying. For the first time in years, the WNBA has a future that feels sustainable and exciting. But it all hinges on this, keeping the momentum going. Silver can't be everywhere forever. At some point, the league will need consistent, day-to-day leadership that can carry out this vision. Leadership that's aligned with players, savvy in business, and globally minded. Whether that's Engelbert or someone new remains to be seen. But if the current trajectory holds, it's clear who the players and the public are leaning toward. Adam Silver didn't just put out a fire. He's redesigning the building. And as the WNBA steps into its most critical growth phase, one thing's clear. The league is no longer waiting to be taken seriously. It's demanding it, earning it, and finally getting it, thanks to leadership that understands the assignment. Adam Silver has already flipped the energy inside the WNBA, and it's only just beginning to ripple outward. There's a new seriousness around the league. You can feel it in the negotiations, in the headlines, in the way players speak publicly about leadership. It's no longer about survival mode. It's about positioning, about strategy, about legacy. And here's the thing. Silver isn't doing this for applause. He's not here for the credit. He's here because the WNBA isn't just some side project to him. It's part of the NBA's ecosystem. A rising league in the women's sports space isn't just good optics. It's good business. It strengthens the brand. It builds new audiences. It creates more value. Globally, every move Silver is making right now reflects that thinking. From stabilizing the CBA talks to mapping out expansion into China, it's all connected, all forward-looking, all part of a bigger machine that Engelbert just wasn't operating at the right speed. And let's be honest, this moment would have slipped through the cracks under her leadership. The surge in interest around players like Caitlin Clark, the record-breaking viewership, the packed arenas, that kind of momentum doesn't last forever. You either act on it or you lose it. Engelbert stood still. Silver built a runway. So now, we're watching something rare in sports, real-time transformation. No rebrands, no gimmicks, just decisive leadership turning potential into power. And whether Engelbert stays in the chair or not, the tone has changed permanently. Silver has raised the bar. Communication with players is now expected. Expansion is on the table. International markets are no longer theoretical. They're being targeted. That's the new standard. Anything less won't fly anymore. It's not about personalities. It's about performance. Engelbert didn't lose control because of one bad decision. She lost it because she didn't make any. And that vacuum, Silver filled it. Now, the question isn't whether he saved the WNBA. He did. The question is whether this league can finally grow into the global powerhouse it should be. Whether it can keep this energy going once Silver inevitably hands the reins back or passes them to someone who actually knows what to do with them. Because this isn't just a hot moment. It's a turning point. The WNBA is no longer asking for relevance. It's building it, with stars on the court, momentum in the press, and, finally, a leader behind the scenes who knows exactly how to turn attention into action. If you're here for it, make sure you hit that like button. Drop a comment. Should Silver keep steering the ship, or is it time for a new commissioner who can take the torch? And subscribe so you don't miss the next twist in this takeover. Because the game's not just changing, it already has.